Hello, today I want to put Spitfire's BBC Discover, which is free if you do a survey on their website. Otherwise, it's I think £49. But as I said, you can get it for free. You have to wait 14 days after you do the survey, but I would definitely recommend downloading it. As I said, it's free, but today we're going to put it up against the samples you already get with Logic to see if it's really worth the upgrade as such, or would it be better to use them together, or is it really better just sticking with what we already have in Logic? So I've got bits and bobs already opened up. We're just going to be going through all the orchestral samples in Logic in conjunction with everything in BBC Discover. We're going to compare them side by side, look at what they have to offer, the different articulations, and let's see if we can answer that question. But first, I guess just looking at it, what's nice about BBC Discover is it is all within this one app. And I really love it because you can click on the different sections of the orchestra and it loads the different samples. We are limited on the amount of articulations, but what is nice about this is once you're used to the Discover, if you want to upgrade to the other versions, it's really easy to change them. I know I've got the Pro version as well downloaded. I use that a lot for everything. It's brilliant. The legatos are beautiful. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the Discover one. And instantly, as I said, we can see we only have 4 articulations. And what I really like about Logic's is actually you have quite a large range of articulations in comparison, just off the bat. And kind of the flexibility of the Logic samples as well. You can change the attack and the release, which I will be doing. You do have dynamic control via CC, which of course we have as well within Spitfire's BBC Discover. You also have expression, which I know it doesn't say it here, but the expression does do something with all of Logic's stuff. Another thing, if we actually look under the hood of Logic's, which you don't get with BBC Discover, which I would highly recommend using if you don't know it's there, is the vibrato control. I have it linked to my MIDI controller when I use CC21 for that. And that is honestly a game changer. Having that slight bit more of variation could be the difference between maybe using Logic Solo String over BBC Discover. But let's put these samples up against each other and see what you think. Let the samples speak for themselves. We'll start off with BBC Discover and look at violin 1's longs. Let's have a little play around. We're going to go completely dry. We'll stick in some reverb later and see how they sound. Beautiful. I must admit they're lovely. They're not quite legato and you don't quite have that lush legato flow, but even then, just playing a couple of chordal patterns, you get some absolutely gorgeous results, and you have a nice little bit of release there as well, and a slight reverb tail, even though we don't have any reverb. It's just, of course, the natural room it was recorded in. Let's stick a little bit of reverb. Let's just go 50%. See how it sounds. So a nice bit of room there as well. Let's stick it right up there. So even then, if you put the reverb on max, it's not too much. You don't have the extremes I'm noticing even if we put the dynamics right at the bottom, you have a nice range there, especially for like a small fader as I have here. And what's nice is you have that expression as well to really fade in from silence. So overall, out of the box, absolutely beautiful. We didn't have to edit anything. There's not much you really can edit, which for somebody who's maybe new to sample libraries, you can go very wrong very quickly if you're just messing around with settings and don't know what you're doing. And so it's nice just to have something you can play out the box. But let's have a comparison now with Logic's own strings. What I've found just messing around with these already is there is some slight tweaking that you need to do to make them sound good. But let's just play them as you would load them. I am going to turn Dynamic via CC on so I can actually play it with my mod wheel. So let's have a play. So off the bat, it's very dry, but you can quite easily add any of the inbuilt reverbs and kind of mess around if you want a bit of reverb with that. The vibrato doesn't sound quite real. I believe they're just putting a bit of wobble onto the sample when you're adding a bit of vibrato. It's nice, but if we put it on max and listen, it doesn't sound quite convincing, but it does add a bit of difference to the sample itself. I'm going to tweak our release slightly. I'm going to add it to about, let's try 30%. I'm going to put a little bit of attack just to make it sound a bit more legato. I know it says it's got legato transitions right here, but let's turn monophonic on so if we can see if we can actually hear some legatos. See, already I'm feeling this is a better legato than BBC Discover. It has more of a solo feel. I believe it is a singular instrument. It does say, well, it could be an ensemble. It sounds almost like a single instrument. You do have sections over here as well if you click there. And I'm definitely thinking the release is helping a bit. Let's play some more chordal stuff now that we've changed it, but I'm liking the legato. What I'm noticing as well is the dynamic fader. I know you can't see what I'm doing with the fader here, but it's very sensitive and slight changes does quite a bit. So with a smaller fader, it's probably not going to be as easy to control that dynamic. But let's play some more chordal stuff now that we've tweaked the patch just a little bit to make it sound a bit better. And then let's do a side-by-side comparison. So you heard that there. Let's go back to BBC. So a very different sound. BBC Discover definitely sounds more like a ensemble, more set in a room, while the Logic strings a lot more in your face, a lot more intimate. I know I can hear that the BBC Discover is panned, where it would sit in the orchestra, while the Logic ones are front and center. But of course we can change the panning up here, and we're going to add a little reverb to Logic's own one to see if we can get it sounding like it's in a room. I'm going to use a reverb anybody can use, and I'm also going to show you what my favorite reverb is. That's out of the box in Logic. It's a large space and it's an Ancient Church Plus. And I'm just going to make it about minus 20% dB on the wet. Let's just have a little play there, making sure this is on the right everything. Yep. Lovely little reverb tail there. And let's maybe hike that back up to 10. I love that reverb. And let's play this again, see if... What's nice is they're completely different sounds, so I think even putting these both together at the moment would sound quite nice. But overall, I think I actually prefer Logic's. There's a bit too much vibrato on the violin ones for me within BBC Discover. I like less vibrato, but it's down to preference. A lot of this is, which is why you've got the samples here to actually hear them. I do believe actually Violin 2 within BBC Discover actually has less vibrato on their strings. They do sound different, which is nice. Sometimes Violin 1s and Violin 2s can sound very similar, which is understandable. They're both violins, but within sample libraries, you do want them sounding different. Let's just quickly listen to those longs before we move on to the different articulations. See, a lot less vibrato, and let's play Violin 1. I should add as well at this point, when you're actually writing with MIDI and MIDI notes, if we go into the actual MIDI region within the strings, what's nice about the Logic one itself is you actually have all the articulations pre-assigned. So if I create a note, I can change this to whatever articulation. While BBC Discover, you don't have those articulation sets. Now I know with BBC Pro I've obtained some articulation sets and they're quite easy to make. I'll do a whole video on that. But I don't know if you can make any articulation sets for BBC Discover. So you're going to have separate tracks really if you want multiple articulations, which is a disadvantage. So let's move on and have a look at the different articulations and see how they sound. We're going to look at the staccatos, or I guess the Pizzicato in the case of BBC Discover, and we'll compare the staccato with the Pizzicato with Violin 1. And we'll start with the BBC Discover's Pizzicato. So let's listen to that. So only one round robin, so you only have one sample, because if I just keep hitting that, you can hear that shotgun effect. Different velocity layers by the looks of it. Maybe not actually. Sounds like just one, but of course how hard you hit the keyboard will determine how loud it is. Does dynamic do anything? So it does have a bit of an effect. Yeah. So that's handy as well. Nice bit of room, nice release. And now let's compare that with the staccatos and subsequently the Spitzicatos as well from Logic's own strings. And we're going to turn the reverb off for this. Definitely works for the longs. We'll turn back the attack. I don't know about you, but I don't like those at all. Let's turn dynamic via CC off, because that affects the velocity. There we go, it's a lot better. Very sensitive on the velocity. It doesn't take much force to get a loud sound. I don't really like that. And the reverb that they've got through the buses has a bit of an echo effect. Not impressed. Let's have a look at the Spitzicatos. Ooh, that's a lot better. That, yeah, definitely huge difference between the Pizzicato and Staccato. I'd never used those Staccatos, but the Spitzicato, I probably would. And let's see if there's any round robins. Ooh, I think you've got 4. 1, 2. Yeah, 4 round robins. And direct comparison. Those are set a lot further back. Instantly you can see that. I guess it depends what you're after, actually. If you want more of an orchestral setting mixed well with the rest of the orchestra, BBC Discover is definitely your go-to. But if you want something more solo, yeah, I really like that. And there's round robins, which is really impressive. Let's move on to the next articulation. We're going to go to Pizzicato. Let's choose those. BBC Discover. So we're looking at Discover's Pizzicatos. Again, that lovely set back sound, very realistic, quite beautiful again. What I really like about BBC Discover, especially in comparison to the studio strings in Logic, is how playable it really is. I feel like the velocities are very well placed in comparison to Logic's, where I really do have to play softly to hear something soft. And when I feel like I'm playing kind of in the middle, I'm getting quite a loud sound, while with BBC Discover, it's easy to play quiet, it's easy to play that mid-range, and then if you really want that forte, while this, I don't know. I'm playing quietly, but I want it to sound quieter, although as your comparison, that's actually really intimate. That actually is beautiful. You really do get a lovely plucky sound off of that. And that slight reverb they put on is very complimentary. So you're not going to get a drier sound than that from BBC Discover. Two very different samples with two different purposes as well. Beautiful. I quite like that. Tremolos. Let's now move on to our tremolos. We're going to want to reactivate our dynamics via CC. I'm going to add a little bit more attack again. I've still got my release up to 30%. Let's go back to BBC Discover and have a little play. I'm going to stick the dynamic right down. Alright, direct comparison. Let's put my dynamic right down. Both beautiful. And again, I think I'm consistently saying this with most of these samples. They're two very different sounds, but they both have their purpose, I believe. And so far, really, well, with the strings, I'm really veering towards, you know what, have both, depending what you're doing. Use the one that best suits your purpose. Or even put them together. Maybe stick a little bit of a reverb on. Let's put that reverb back on and see how it sounds if you really want that space. Definitely Logic's one, and Logic samples are a lot more intimate. All of them are so far. And that's really it when it comes to samples for the violins, when it comes to BBC Discover. But where Logic really just takes it away, at least the studio strings, we have all these different articulations. And if you're really composing a melodic line, especially using MIDI, you can change your longs, so you can have most of them sustains. You can then use an accented sustain, you can use a scoop, you can vary the sample you use for your longs to really bring out a more realistic sound. Let's quickly just go through all the different ones they offer. The falls, there you go. I think there's a short, one as well, fall short. And fast scoop, slow scoop, accented sustain, crescendo fast, crescendo slow. Ooh, nice release on that. That's really nice, actually. Interesting effect, slow. Glissando down. It's quite nice. Glissando up. Getting some folky vibes there. Of course, our pizzicatos, and we have our different trills, semi and whole. Ooh, I quite like that. And there you have it. That's the strings, at least, well, the violins versus each other. Let's quickly have just a flick through violin 2 to see if we see much difference between them. I know with the Discover we have a very different sustain sound. Just a quick comparison. And so let's have a look if we see much difference between violin 2 sustains and violin 1. So this is violin 2 sustains within Logic. put violin ones. So this is what I was kind of saying earlier, where sometimes you really don't hear a difference between violin 1 and violin 2. We're seeing that with the studio strings in Logic. Maybe a little bit more resin. I can't tell much difference. Let's compare the staccatos, or Pizzicatos, because I really hated the staccatos. So that's violin 1, violin 2. I'm not noticing any difference. Let's have a look at the staccatos in violin 2. Just as horrible. Let's do a comparison with Discover. See if we can hear a difference between the Pizzicatos. So violin 1 Pizzicatos. Very different. Off the bat you can hear. Yeah, very different. If anything, violin 1 sounds more like staccatos, while violin 2 are definitely more spizzicato. They definitely made sure you have a difference between the two, while in Logic's, I don't really see the point in having violin 1 and violin 2 at the same time, because they just sound the same. Let's move on to the violas, see if we notice any difference. Let's use spizzicato. I know we definitely hear a difference in range. Okay, that's a spizzicato for the violas. Yeah. Slight difference. Of course you have the difference in range. I guess these are all string instruments. When you're playing the same note, they should all sound roughly similar. But that's a bit too similar for me, if I'm honest. We're flicking between 3 instruments. Let's go even further. So, of course the double bass won't play that high. Okay, definitely a nice difference there. Cellos. Let's have a quick flick through of all the BBC Discover spizzicatos. So, violin 1s, violin 2s, violas, cellos. So of course you've got the panning. But what I'm really liking about BBC Discover is all the sounds are quite uniquely different, have their own characteristic. As well, they're nicely panned, but they're definitely different, and they have that lovely orchestral setting. You are limited to your articulations. Let's quickly flick through the pizzicato as well. Lovely sounds, full of character, unique, very well chosen. You can tell they put a lot of work into this one. Well, don't get me wrong, I actually love and almost prefer a lot of the sustains within the Logic Studio strings, but I'm finding them very similar, a bit too similar for my liking. Let's have a quick look at the cello sustains. I'm quite fond of cellos. There's definitely some key switches because I'm hitting notes lower than its range and it changes. Okay, let's look at the Scover's cello long. I really like that release on the cello lungs, actually. It's quite subtle, but it's definitely there. Like it sounds like they're coming off. While when we go over to Logic Studios, it's kind of more of a fade. That release. Let's see if we take the release off, if we get a little bit more of a... Ooh, wow, that just cuts. So put it back to 20% where they originally had it. That still sounds like I'm just chopping the audio up. Well, that just sounds like they're taking that bow off the string. It's a love-hate relationship between the two of these. It's like, I just want a little bit more of this one, but I feel like this one just needs a little bit too much tweaking and you're just missing little bits, but the overall sound is lovely. Let's move on from strings altogether. I know we haven't gone into absolutely everything, but we did have a deep dive into violin ones, and I think we'll consistently see something similar throughout them. We're going to move now onto the brass, which is a dangerous subject